Coming to you live from the shadow of the big house, it's IT4U. Tips and tricks on ITS tools, products, services, and more with your host, Jean Mackey.
I'm Jean Mackey, your IT4U host. These are interactive webinars brought to you by ITS, and I don't usually have my presenter sitting right next to me on camera. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning, Jean.
He's our presenter. Let me just say a couple things before I turn it over to him. So all these sessions are recorded, and we will download it and put it up on YouTube, and that'll be on our IT4U webpage, which is on the Google Doc. And accessibility, if you need an accommodation to participate, just let us know. Give us 10 business days if you need accommodations for the live broadcast. What's coming up next week? We're doing business objects, create a short code report in business objects with Bill LaCroix, and he's extremely knowledgeable about both short codes and business objects. Today, going live with BlueJeans with our presenter Todd Austin, who's our LSNA video conferencing lead and has many other responsibilities as well, but I'm going to turn it over to Todd.
Thanks very much, Jean.
We good?
Here we go.
Okay.
All right. So first, just a little bit of terminology. So I throw on the term video conferencing a lot. And by video conferencing, I mean a live two-way connection that is as much as possible as though you're sitting in the same space with other folks. So when we set up video conferencing sessions, we strive as best as we can to minimize the interference of the tech. We don't want a heavily moderated experience like you might get with something like Adobe Connect, a web conferencing tool. BlueJeans, or BlueJeans Network in particular, is, as I say, a cloud service, which means that there are BlueJeans servers up in the sky which receive the connections from the various endpoints and do any translation necessary and send them out. This differs importantly from something like commodity service Skype, which uses the logged-in computers of other Skype users as its routers. And so your call is dependent upon many and varied hardware and locations and network connections, which is why Skype calls can be pretty unreliable sometimes, and why we do our best to avoid it in any kind of situation that we care about. There are many different ways to connect to a BlueJeans meeting. It will support the computers that I think most of us, if not all of us, are using this morning. It will also support room systems like from Cisco or Polycom, which is what actually I'm speaking to you through now at the Administrative Services Building. There are also apps for iOS and Android, and it speaks with plain old telephones. Quite a few people on campus actually use BlueJeans for telephone-only connections. So you can put any combination of stuff that you want into a BlueJeans call. Up to 100 locations of any of those types will fit into a BlueJeans room. There is an additional BlueJeans service known as BlueJeans Primetime, for which we've recently signed a license. BlueJeans Primetime is a BlueJeans meeting with a passive downstream audience of up to 5,000 locations. Wow. This is a much more moderated and controlled environment, much like an event production environment. If you don't want to be interacting much with your audience, you could use Primetime. In fact, we could have conceivably used Primetime for this morning in this more sort of webinar sort of format.
And speaking of interaction, let me just ask you, how do you want people to put in their questions? Do you prefer chat or speak?
I would say that in the interest of time, because we have just 45 minutes here, it'll be probably best while I'm speaking and working through my stuff early on, if you could type in your questions to the chat window in the upper right-hand corner, right underneath the red leave button. If you hit the red leave button, you will be instantly disconnected, so light on the finger up there. And then Jean can see the questions and read them out here as appropriate. And then at the end, when we're done with the presentation part, go ahead and unmute your microphone and your camera if you wish, and we can join a live back and forth for as much time as we have. So thank you, Jean. So BlueJeans Primetime is also available. If you want access to it, contact the ITS BlueJeans team, and they can get you access to it and access to training as well. At this point, I'm actually planning to teach a Primetime session during Enriching Scholarship in early May.
Cool.
BlueJeans records in HD, 720p in this case, for high definition. MP4 video files at about 500 megs an hour. It records all the video and audio content, kind of like you're a silent partner, like many of you are, joined to the room with your camera and microphone turned off so that you see and hear everything else that's going on. That's what you get in the recording. If content is shared, as I am doing now, you will get a few different versions of the recording with the content and the video and the audio all conflated together with the video in a window in the upper corner. You'll get just the content and the audio, and then you'll get the standard file with the video and the audio without any content at all. So all those will be available to the creator of the meeting for download. BlueJeans speaks a very efficient protocol. To go technical on you for a moment, it's H.264 SVC. SVC stands for Scalable Video Coding, and that means that from the minimum amount of bandwidth that BlueJeans wants to use, it reserves a portion of it, 40 to 80K, for audio only, and it protects it jealously. So if the bandwidth degrades, it will degrade the video, usually experienced by the picture getting smaller first, and then it may pixelate or the frame rate may drop. You may lose the video entirely and the audio layer continues, so you can keep talking with the other person. Only in the most extreme cases will you lose the audio connection too. But if you're all using the BlueJeans apps of various kinds, when that bandwidth comes back, you're reconnected automatically. We put connections into some very challenging locations in the world, including a regular nursing class with rural Haiti, connected with Hanoi in Vietnam, North Korea, Myanmar. The most challenging of those actually turned out to be Myanmar, where the connection did drop a few times. We were on a room system like we're using here and had to redial a couple of times too. And I think our guest in a hotel in Myanmar had to redial himself. So it happens, but not too often. I also want to mention that BlueJeans is legally HIPAA compliant, so it's doing the encryption and all the paperwork is complete. I want to refer you to the ITS BlueJeans page, which has some details about things that you need to think about if you want to use sensitive data with BlueJeans, protecting the recordings and things like that.
And if you go to chat and look at the first entrance in the chat pod, I put a link to a Google Doc that's got that page in it.
Excellent. Thanks, Gene. So here are a few links that are in the doc that I believe have been shared with you. First and foremost is support.bluejeans.com. There is live meeting support here 24 hours a day. It's what I use. It's what I recommend that you use for live support during a meeting, not for technical issues with the equipment that you're in. Go to your local IT staff for that, by all means. But if you're in a call and it's not going well, the folks at BlueJeans are very well set up to assist you. You tell them what's going on, you tell them your meeting ID, and they will help you figure it out. They can see all the data streams on the back end in a great amount of detail, and they are constantly being trained and retrained. So BlueJeans revises its software about every 6 weeks, and they revise the training for their staff every 6 weeks too. So they are by far the most current folks to go to for assistance like that. At support.bluejeans.com, you also find training videos, lots of documentation. There's a discussion forum. It's just a very useful website, and I recommend it. The ITS site there also has links to unit level support. So at LSNA, that's my team at LSNA, the group that I work with, and several other units on campus also have dedicated BlueJeans support, often through the AV group. And I know that where there isn't an AV group, that IT staff is being asked to do this work, and I hope that you find this class useful that you're hearing right now. If you want to be a little more in-depth, go ahead and sign up for one of my 90-minute BlueJeans workshops through the TTC website. Hold them about our languages building. Very happy to get into depth. Whatever is appropriate for you, I tailor that class to the audience that takes it any given day. So I think you probably all are familiar with these. BlueJeans.com/downloads has all the various flavors of the app. There are various extensions for calendars and browsers, scheduling tools of various kinds. My workspace is grabbing the enterprise version of the app for Mac and PC and Linux too, I think. I'm not sure about the Linux part. And they distribute that. So you can if you have a My Workspace machine, you can contact them and ask them to push it to your machine. That is a slightly more stable version. It does not auto-update and will be stable over longer periods of time but fully functional. It doesn't lose any functionality. There was a time when BlueJeans was cutting off old versions, and they're being a little bit lighter on the finger with that, and we have a really good timing worked out with them. So that works great. So at this point, I'm going to switch what I'm showing you here and flip over. First, I'm going to go right to this view. So this is the app. This is my view of the app. So if I hope most of you, if not all of you, are using the app. As I mentioned in my email last night, Google Chrome does support, and that's actually what I'm using right now to share out my screen. But the Google Chrome options are somewhat limited, and you are putting yourself at mercy of the Google Chrome browser. So you have a bunch of tabs open and things like that, or running some kind of Flash app in the background. Google Chrome may not be a great solution, but if you have a distant guest in a meeting who doesn't have experience, and you can just give them a URL and they can load it into Chrome, and a 2-second installation of an extension gets them up and running. So it can be very great, very useful for a quick and dirty face-only meeting. But through the app, you have a lot of content now. So I have allowed BlueJeans app access to my Google Calendar. So I see here not only meetings to which I created myself, or to which I was directly invited by putting my email address into the invitation, but also just BlueJeans URLs that show up in meetings in my calendar. All of those things are showing here. So the one that I'm in right now is the last type of those. So this is just a meeting that's in my calendar, and I put the ID in. BlueJeans.com, http bluejeans.com/meeting ID. BlueJeans sees that, it grabs it, it shows it in this list. Very useful. And this is just a great way to launch it off. I won't be launching anything here, because I'd say I'm using Chrome for this connection right now, and you can't run multiple BlueJeans meetings off your window at once. So, which makes that other one a little tricky. Not sure I'm going to show you all these pieces and parts here. I can show you at least the basic controls here. So chat, you already know. This is obviously things that you type in here are seen by everybody in the room, and they are not saved. So even if you're recording the meeting as we are right now, this content is not saved. So if something happens here, URLs or discussion or something that you want to preserve, copy and paste it elsewhere before you leave the room, because it will disappear when the last person leaves the room. The participant list. So this is everybody in the room. If you click on a name, you can see what technology they're using. So I can see that Bob is actually using the Chrome browser. WebRTC is real-time communications. It's the underlying API that's embedded in the Chrome browser and makes it possible to join directly using Chrome. This is a little cell phone type meter that shows you how strong the connection is, and a little information about the technology being used for audio and video. You'll notice when you mouse over someone's picture, that little chat bubble pops up, except for the room system here, which you can't chat with Cisco, I think we have here. But if you click on that bubble, then you have a private text chat room with that person, and you can freely interact with them, and only the two of you will see it. Finally, if it's yourself, up here. Oh, this doesn't let me do it. Okay. Oh, that's right, because I'm in screen share only mode, which I'll show you in a minute. This is screen share only mode that I'm in, which limits what you can do with your connection. But you can mute and unmute yourself. In this location, if you were the moderator, if you're the person who created the meeting and joined with your special moderator code for your meeting, you would be able to mute and unmute people's cameras and microphones here. I want to note that you cannot force someone into the room. If they choose to mute their own camera or their own microphone, the moderator cannot unmute them. It's different in prime time. In prime time, they can. So in prime time, the moderator is much more like the TV director, but not in BlueJeans, what's known as on video, which is what we're using this morning.
So Todd, am I right that if I mute them as the moderator, then I can unmute them and mute them again?
Correct. If they have not taken action to mute or unmute themselves, then that control does lie in your hands as the moderator. Thanks, Gene. But if they've taken any action to mute themselves, you can't override it as moderator. Questions? Yeah, go ahead. If you have any questions, easiest right now if you go ahead and type those into the chat window, right above right below the leave button in the upper right-hand corner of your BlueJeans screen. So feel free to toss those in at any time if they occur to you. And as works as I can, I will stop and answer your questions. So share screen. I have a very limited view of share screen here because I'm in Chrome. So sharing screen is a, turn off my content share. Let's see if I can do that again. I can't. Now it turns it off instantly. Okay. How to do this? Hang on, guys. I don't normally juggle this through a connection. One moment. So with Google Chrome, you have very limited options. You can basically share your entire screen, and that is it. Within the app, I'm fully muted here, so as not to cause chaos. Within the app, you can choose individual applications to share. So that if you want to show just your PowerPoint slides and not those, the sea of documents on your desktop or that creative background picture, you can do that by sharing an individual app within the app. You can share a single application running on your computer through the BlueJeans application. Yes, Jean.
Aaron says, right now my team mostly uses Google Hangouts for remote meetings. Can you compare the two? And also, how would I create a BlueJeans link to add to a meeting? And then Jean wants to know which browsers do work well. So we got like 3 questions.
Sure. So to catch the latter one first, since it's on the theme I'm already kind of on, you can use only Chrome at this point. Supports WebRTC. Firefox will support it soon, I believe. I'm not sure when that version will be pushed out to us. And I think IE is expected to. Apple's not making any comment on what they plan to do with Safari at this point. So that's all with embedded code in the browser. There used to be a plugin. The various browser manufacturers have retired that plugin architecture because it was a real security hole for them. So you can't really use browsers, with the exception of Chrome at this point. For, as I say, a somewhat feature-limited experience. It doesn't let you share individual apps. It doesn't show the video of the people you're talking to on your screen when you're sharing your app out, your screen out, and you're looking at that other app. Their video disappears from you. So it's feature limited. As I say, it's dependent upon the Chrome browser. I really recommend that you avoid it and stay with the standalone BlueJeans app. And I'm sorry, the meeting creation point. So Hangouts. Hangouts are, so Hangouts I find, you can choose different screen layouts in BlueJeans. I haven't gotten to the screen detail yet. If you mouse over, you'll find some icons at the bottom to let you choose how you're seeing the video that's coming at you. Hangouts do only that kind of large image for the current talking person and other ones tiled below. I found it to be very jumpy, that it will pop to the other one if they, scratch their face a little bit. That's enough for Hangouts to switch over to them. I found that really distracting. I have found that Hangouts are not as stable. They don't support as many people. You can't do all the separate video sharing and things that you can do that I haven't gotten to yet through Hangouts. So there are any number of reasons why it's more limited. You can't connect it to a room system like I'm using now. The telephones, I don't think, work with Hangouts. I use Hangouts for quick and dirty meetings myself. But when I'm organizing something, I make a BlueJeans room for it. So hope that covers it, Aaron. Yep.
And then the link, about creating a link, that happens when you create the meeting.
When you create the meeting, which we will get to in just a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me try to reshare my screen if I can. All right, you know what? I lied. I can be in 2 meetings at once.
Yeah.
So I'm in that didn't used to be the case. So once again, this is something that BlueJeans has changed, and I didn't know about it yet. It happens with some frequency. So this is my personal meeting, which I'll talk about in a minute. And I am the moderator of this meeting. So what I can show you here is a few more controls. I had someone else connected to it. Actually, when I mouse over those other names, you would see a pin icon in the front over here. If I click that, that means that that person's image is guaranteed to be on everybody's screen in the meeting, no matter what screen layout they choose. So you can always choose to change the layout of your screen using those tiles at the bottom when you mouse over the image that you're receiving. But with the moderator controls, I can make sure that one presenter person is always on everybody's screen, no matter if they silence their microphone and don't talk for a while, and other people are chatting wildly in the background. They won't roll off the screen. You can see I can bulk mute and unmute everyone as a moderator. I can easily invite more people. I think you may have that. I'm not sure. I should note the invitations that you receive by email for this meeting are generic. They are not unique to you, so they can just be easily forwarded to somebody else. But all you really need is that URL. And there's a little set of moderator controls here, which gets me a little bit ahead of the curve, but I can actually push out a suggested desktop layout to everyone. So if you haven't found it yet, I can push the tiled layout to you, but you can always mouse over the tiles and change that yourself. And then I'll note here that this has silent entry mode, which means that this is not actually enabled for this meeting, or actually it wasn't, because I was seeing banners showing up. So silent entry mode means that there are no banners across the top and no tones when people enter and leave the meeting. For a very large meeting, it's what you want to do, because otherwise that constant coming and going, which happens in a large meeting, will drive people nuts. Mute on entry, we definitely do have enabled for this meeting. It means that people's microphones are muted when they join. I use this for meetings greater than about 8 people. I find that at that level, the chances that somebody is going to be a source of feedback get to be pretty good. And so mute on entry, use your spacebar to talk, goes a long way towards dampening down feedback cycles. Feedback being basically caused by slow network connections or slow machines. And slow machines can be an old machine, but can also be a modern machine that has 30 Word documents and 50 web browsers and all the rest of it and hasn't been rebooted in 2 months. That machine can also be kind of slow on the processing end, causing enough delay that the echo canceling software no longer recognizes the signal and sends it right back and causes that feedback loop. The general rule of thumb is the person who says they don't hear feedback, that person is the source. So that's a good way to approach it. And finally, lock meeting I'll mention here. To lock the meeting by the moderator means even if a person has the meeting ID, they cannot get in. So this I use on rare occasions for meetings where people want it to be really private, even if the silent entry mode is not turned on. So there would be some sort of banner and tones. They don't want to worry about it. They want it locked. So personnel type meetings, hiring meetings, interviews of a sensitive nature, I have locked to give everybody a good peace of mind. Keep in mind, though, that if somebody has technical problems and drops off, if the room is locked, they will not get back in. You'll have to unlock them to let them back in. So screen share. Screen share, as you see now I'm in the app. I didn't have all these options within screen share for Chrome. So I can share all these individual, you find you have things running that you didn't know. You can share all these individual apps and they will just kind of float against a blue background. So if you switch the app of focus, the people on the receiving end just have a blank blue screen until you switch back to the app that you shared. It's a great way to focus on just the content you want to share and not other things that might be on your desktop. Video content. So I am logged into my BlueJeans account right now. I have pre-uploaded videos to that account. I can grab and share those videos from here, and they will appear on my screen and appear very much like the content image is appearing on your screen right now.
Which is what I did with the intro, for those of you who remember that.
Precisely. So that gives you control. You can actually stop that and scrub it to different locations. When you're playing that video, everyone's audio is muted. So you're just all watching the video together. It's just streaming out in parallel from the BlueJeans servers. You can, in theory, put a video on your screen and just share your screen. The audio will go fine. The video will be low frame rate because screen sharing is not full frame rate. It's about 15 frames a second, so it's kind of stutter-stepped. That may be fine for what you need. It may not be fine. So if it's not fine, recommend that you pre-upload the video to be sure that it's ready when you need it. As you see, there's an upload video button here. So you can theoretically upload it during your meeting, but then you're depending upon having the time to upload it, get it processed by BlueJeans, and made available to you by the time that you need it in your meeting. And I wouldn't risk that myself. And you see by my mouse over here, they support quite a few video formats. So you should be able to find something that works for you. You can access not only videos that you've uploaded, but also recordings of prior meetings that you've made are available here. And you see I've recorded a couple of my classes here, and some other work that we've been doing for our instructors around campus. Settings, very important. So if you have multiple cameras, microphones, and speakers connected to your device, you can choose which one you're using here. The microphone, which I have muted in my case, but it's still showing the sensitivity of it. There is a little response bar here so you can see if it's working or not. There's a test sound you can play back through your own speakers to make sure that you've actually turned the right speakers on. Windows machines tend to create virtual devices depending upon installed software. So you may have to poke around just a bit to find out which ones actually work with BlueJeans. More connections options I'll touch here. So when you joined the meeting, you had that computer and telephone option. There was a bar below that said other options, and that is what this is. So you can pair it with a room system, as we're using here, a Cisco system. It speaks to Link and Jabber, but probably most useful to all of us is what I'm using right now on my laptop, which is screen share only mode. That means that your computer, your device, completely ignores all the audio and visual content of the BlueJeans meeting and is merely a source of screen sharing or a recipient of screen sharing. So you can use that to have like an extra endpoint in a room where you already have an AV endpoint set up, and somebody wants to share their slides. They can just do it through BlueJeans, as we are doing here, without having to plug in with cables and adapters and all the rest of it. Works very well. And since I'm on that subject, if I were to have multiple devices connected in the same physical space that had speaker or microphone turned on, you'll get a feedback loop very, very quickly. So you want to have one device handling all the audio. Both the microphone and speaker functions must be on one device. Switch to telephone here. So, the spacebar muting goes a long way towards killing feedback cycles, but sometimes the audio is just awful for whatever reason. It might be the computer they're using, it might be some kind of other technical problem, but sometimes you just can't understand this person. They might have a poor network connection where the delay in the connection is going up and down. That's called jitter, and that will distort their voices. There'll be dropouts, pretty non-functional. They can switch their audio functions, both the speaker and microphone, get to work, yes, to their telephone. So if that person is in the United States or Canada, they can have BlueJeans call them. Their phone will ring, the little BlueJeans recording there, they push 1 to confirm that they want to join. That's so you can't prank somebody into a BlueJeans meeting. And then all the audio functions are switched to their telephone while the video continues through the computer. This is a very useful way to get around just insurmountable audio problems. You just want to get on with the meeting and you just can't understand them, switch to telephone. If I choose dial-in here, you will see that there are actually numbers in quite a few other countries in the world. Some of these are toll-free locally, some of them are toll calls locally, but they are in-country toll calls, not international toll calls, which is a good bit more affordable. You are familiar, obviously, with mute audio and mute video. Most of you have done one or the other of those. As the moderator here, I have a recording button. So that means that I can turn off or on recording for this meeting at will. When you create the meeting, you can set it to auto record, or you can log in as moderator and control this here. I will give you my standard warning, which is always ask permission or announce when you're going to record people, so that no one is surprised and no one appears on recording where they don't want to. If you're in a large hall, put up a sign at the entry, announce it from the stage, whatever's appropriate, to be sure people have an option to opt out if they want. If you want to use that recording for something significant and want to be sure that you are covered legally, if you point your web browser at itunes.umich.edu and click on the FAQ page, you will find a form there, a video permissions form that's vetted and approved by the General Counsel's office that you can have people sign that will give you the right to use their image on that recording. Full screen obviously takes over all the entire screen, removes all the menus and things at the top like I have here. I'm not going to do that right now. I have too many other things going on. And what I can't show you here, because I don't have anybody else connected to my personal meeting, is that if I mouse over this central area here, you'll see those three screen layout options. And when content is being shared, you've got a little extra suite of icons there, including a blue dot on a slider. You slide that side to side, and you can resize the video and content streams on your screen at will.
Renee says that includes students, question mark? I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
Video permission.
Oh, video permission.
Yeah, absolutely. We use that for recordings we make of students that we want to have rights to. We sure do. If I have time to get to my slides at the end here, you'll see that some images you can see people's faces, and some images you can't. I block them out. And the ones where you see the faces are the ones where I have those forms. So yes, absolutely. Anybody who appears in the video or images that you want to use that form. So that covers the interface.
Any other questions at this moment? Just put them in the chat pod.
So this is the BlueJeans.com website. As the list of links earlier that Jean shared indicated, it. The place to log into your personal BlueJeans account is umich.bluejeans.com. And since I'm mentioning accounts, remember that you don't need an account to join a BlueJeans room. Only the person creating the room uses the account. So this is for meeting creation. When you log in, and you'll be challenged for your U of M credentials, this is single sign-on enabled. The first time you do, you'll see a screen of M community information that's dumped where you hit confirm. That's just a little handshake being done that says, yes, this person is authorized to use BlueJeans. They're in one of the units that support it, which as far as I know right now includes everything on campus except music, theater, and dance, which for whatever reason has not presently purchased the BlueJeans license. So this is your basic interface. The most important button for you here is this blue schedule meeting button. I'm going to click there, and this is how you create a meeting. Meeting title, I urge you to give a meaningful title. If you invite anybody, this is going to show up on their electronic calendars. And if it's some kind of non-specific title, it won't be very helpful to them. Meeting description, you can put in here if you want. It'll also appear in the email and the meeting itself. If you have new users, I will often give a brief introduction to BlueJeans here. Click on the blue join meeting button in this email to get started. A web browser will open, things like that. The stuff that you've just experienced. Summarize it in 2 or 3 sentences. That can help them along a little bit. Meeting times must be in the future. If you try to schedule a meeting in the past, BlueJeans will stop you and not let you. But BlueJeans rooms work not only at that time when you schedule them, they work from the moment that you create them. So that if you create a BlueJeans room for next week and you have a person who's never used BlueJeans before, go ahead and make that room and then reach out to them by email and say, hey, you know what? I see you've not used BlueJeans before. Let's run a quick test connection. And we do lots and lots of test connections in my group. So we reach out to folks. We be sure that that their technology is all set up, that they know which microphone to choose, that their speakers are turned on, that maybe they need to switch to a wire connection from a wireless because it's just too unstable, things like that. Or they're sitting in front of a window and you can't see their face because the camera is keen exposure on the bright window behind them. All sorts of little things like that you can take care of in advance and not use your meeting time for tech support, which absolutely everyone hates. So avoid that and do a pre-test. But the fact that that meeting works from the moment of creation also means that you can create a BlueJeans room for not only days in advance, but months in advance. Conceivably, and we do this, create a stable BlueJeans ID by making that meeting for like 8 months from now, and then just share out the URL and say, this is the BlueJeans ID for our project X. Whenever we have a meeting for project X, just go to that URL. And they can bookmark it and load it anytime they need it. It works really well and gives you a stable ID so you don't have to generate new ones all the time. Now, if you have a group that meets on a regular basis, you can use this repeat meeting function. Because of interface, it's very much like Google, and you can have that appear on everybody's calendar every third Tuesday at 3 p.m. That works great. But for irregular meetings, use that, create it in the far future, and share the URL.
Renee wants to know how to start an ad hoc meeting to use as a phone bridge. Do you have some tips on that?
Well, as far as an ad hoc meeting, we all have, the meeting that I was showing you earlier that said Todd's meeting on it, that I was doing the interface on, in the background here, you'll see it says Start My Meeting. Each of us individually has a standing meeting with a stable ID that never goes away. So conceivably, you can pass that out and use that for a quick and dirty meeting. Everybody knows when they want to join a meeting with you, they can join that. A proviso on that, though. If you start handing out your meeting ID broadly, you never know who has it or who might use it at any point in time. You never know who might stumble into your meeting. I tend to use my personal meeting only for testing purposes. I don't use that meeting ID for the meetings that I generally schedule to avoid problems of crosstalk, people showing up where they weren't expected and maybe aren't wanted depending on the subject matter.
So what's the best practice if I just want people to be able to have a conference call using BlueJeans?
I would tend to create one of those far distant meetings in the future thing. Maybe not put anybody into the invite list. You're not required to put any email addresses into this invite participants list. And in that way, you've got a stable ID that you could share out that's not your personal meeting. And that way you can share, meeting ID X for a specific purpose. So that you have a quick and dirty phone conversation on a subject that one assumes is repeated, that you'll just have it available to you.
Where do you find the phone number?
The phone number to call. So when they, that's on the bluejeans.com/numbers page that you received in the list. Also, when you're within the call, and I did that switch to phone, the phone numbers were all listed there. When you create a meeting, you get a confirmation email back. The U.S. toll and toll-free numbers are also listed there. So there are quite a few places where you can find the U.S.-based toll numbers and the international ones as well.
Cool.
So repeat meeting I just showed you. Invite participants. If you want to invite them by email, they get the email that I think you all received to join this meeting. That has a nice blue join meeting button in it. Group addresses here are fine. Remember that members only community groups will not receive this message because BlueJeans.com is not a member of that group. Advanced options, very important here. So I avoid this one completely. So you can conceivably use your personal meeting ID on every meeting you create. I strongly recommend that you don't do that in order to have that separation. The add a passcode is to add a 4-digit passcode in addition to the 9-digit ID. This is distributed right along with the meeting ID. There's really no additional security here. It's just something extra to type if somebody needs to type it. I frankly never use it. Enable auto recording. So this will start recording when the second location enters the call, and it turns it off when the last location leaves. One thing I didn't show you, because I'm not logged in as a moderator here, is that if you're logged in as moderator and click on that leave button, you get options to kick everybody out when you depart. There's an extra little menu that you get that a standard user does not. And that's a great way to terminate a recording at the end of a large meeting. Otherwise, the recording just keeps going. 4-minute warning, thanks. Encryption, this forces encryption on room systems. All the BlueJeans software is encrypted by default. You can't turn it off. Crop video is a very narrow application for iPads. Makes it look by 16 by 9 when it's tiled. Disabled chat forces people to turn on their microphones at least to talk. The text chat is disabled. Mute on entry, silent we talked about already. And this lets everybody else see who else is in the room. When you create a meeting, you get an email confirmation back that says do not forward in the subject line. Really important, don't forward that because you have a moderator passcode that enables all those moderator controls on all of your meetings. You don't want to share that. You can get to that up here. I'm not going to actually navigate to that page because I don't want to show you all my moderator passcode and put it on YouTube. So that's under settings here. You can actually edit your personal meeting ID and your moderator passcode. You can make default settings for your meetings as to, I have one thing I didn't address and I really should there, is in meeting creation, there was a link there that I had already selected that's really important. Let me get back to that. I don't want to say start without a moderator. So this is, as you see, enabled on my meeting by default. This means that the room works without you having to join it. If you're in a very controlled environment where it works, people can start seeing and hearing each other when you join, so you give a presentation, use that unchecked. But checked means when they start joining, they can see and hear and talk to each other and not just waiting for moderator to start the meeting splash screen that they would get otherwise. Basically, all of my meetings I do start without moderator. I want to let you know that you can delegate. So you can let someone else create meetings in your name. Very useful for kind of, support staff kind of roles. Meeting history. So you can download your entire meeting history. You can get quite a bit of detail, as you can see, about who joined and for how long. And you can also download this meeting history right down here as a comma delimited variables file that you can put into Excel. Okay, I know we're running out of time here. So different equipment, we kind of talked about that. We use mostly mobile systems, either PC or codec based at LSNA, so we can do what we want where we want it. But we also use installed hardware as well. And actually, we were installing an increasing amount of PC hardware, no longer really installing codecs because they're quite limited as to what they can do. When you're setting these up, especially if you're IT staff, remember that while you're working on equipment and you need the equipment to work, at the end of the day, what you're really engineering is an experience. So you want to think about things like having the camera at eye height, as what I'm using here, not someplace up high, so you're getting this down on the top of the head, Big Brother is watching you look. Very unpleasant for the people at the receiving end.
And not from underneath for those of us who are getting older.
Yeah, if you're on a laptop, think about getting a laptop stand or just using a box or something to get that camera up in the air. So once again, it's at eye height. Thank you, Gene. I'm not like that, am I? So lighting, lighting in the face. Now overly bright backgrounds that aren't too busy, that aren't too white. Shooting something against a whiteboard is usually a really bad experience. You want kind of neutrally colored. If you're painting a room, look for something called LRV, light reflectance value. Get a number around 50. Makes a great background for people of varying skin tones.
Oh no, we put you in front of a whiteboard.
Yeah, sorry. Fail. Acoustic environment. So, noise handling, air handling in spaces can be noisy. Where you place your microphones, things like that. And microphone placement. This is right in front of me. We'll space them out. We have 2 microphones spaced on this table, which is a great way to do it. We also install PZM, surface mics on the ceiling, often in rooms where we do installations. It's a great way to get away from tapping fingers, which I'm sure was really noisy for you.
I'm afraid we're running out of time.
And yeah, we've run out of time. You'll see all this good stuff if you take my class. So we use BlueJeans in lots of different ways. And I will show you one slide anyway, which is this is a classic meeting layout. So screen and camera at one end, some kind of U-shape or V-shape distribution of the people in the room so that camera can see each face individually. And then we have content share going over here like I'm doing right now. So he's sharing his content not only wired to the projector on the ceiling, but also wireless to BlueJeans. So the distant people see this, get the 2 content feed and the video feed separately. You don't want to point your camera at the screen. Makes for a really washed out, poor experience. And I'll save the rest of those for another time. So take my class if you want to know more. Because we run out of time.
Yeah. All right, here I am. I'm going over to my slides so I can close out here. So we're going to stop sharing in a moment. We're going to stop recording, in a moment. I'm going to give you a Google Doc to forms for feedback. I will send you the links to all this, and we'll have the recording additionally very shortly as soon as we can get it captioned. And thank you so much, Todd.
That's a pleasure. Thanks for asking, Jean.
Lots of useful information. And okay, stop recording.